The sun's finally coming out, the cold has disappeared, and I'm stood on Harlech Beach. Let's go. One of the most fearsome parts of a castle wasn't necessarily its dungeons or rooms in which a prisoner would be locked inside of. Some castles had dungeons such as Oubliettes, tiny cells where suffering people would be forced into, and there was little to no chance of them ever escaping or being let out. In fact, the word oubliette actually means rather ominously to forget, and that's the fate that someone locked inside the dungeon would usually get. But one of the more aptly named parts of a castle was one of the most savage yet simple ways of defending a castle. Murder holes. Yep, murder holes. A hole in a castle's gatehouse with the sole intention of murdering someone who was attacking the castle. In the medieval period, they didn't really tend to shy away from giving things names based on how brutal they were. Murder holes were very, very basic, but they were an incredibly important part of a castle. They were usually found where there was traditionally a weakness in the castle's defences, and they were also built into the floors of different rooms. They were holes in the ceilings of a gatehouse, and from here, objects could be thrown down onto someone who was beneath. They were used sometimes alongside another castle's defensive structure known as a matriculation, a stone outcrop which had a hole in the bottom of the floor. These platforms allowed defenders to strike attackers from above a wall specifically. But murder holes were found mostly on the interiors of the castles, specifically mostly gatehouses. Inside the gatehouse of a castle near to here, Carnarvon, there are many different murder holes in the ceiling of this gatehouse. These were used in conjunction with many portcullises, as if someone was trying to attack the gatehouse. A portcullis in front would prevent them from getting into the inner castle, and then once under the gatehouse, the defenders would drop another portcullis behind the attackers. This in theory trapped the attackers in a killing zone beneath the feet of the defenders who were sat above them. From above they could then rather safely fire arrows down onto the people below. They would also throw other manner of objects down onto the enemy. Boiling sand was a favourite, and if a bucket of this was thrown onto an enemy from above, then the sand would get into the armour and would cause horrific burns and suffering. It's claimed that sometimes oil would be thrown too, but this was very expensive at the time, so was probably more rarely used, and probably only used when things became desperate. Inside of some castles' gatehouses, there were even murder holes built into the side of the structure, and by using a number of different passages, the defenders could then use weapons such as spears, whilst relatively protected, to slay and deal with the attackers. One of the biggest strengths of murder holes is that the defenders were very well protected, and they could use hatches to then cover the holes when they were reloading. The attackers would usually be panicked too, as the portcullis trapped them, and they realised all manner of horror was just about to greet them. Murder holes were intended to murder and slaughter people who were attacking castles. They were brutal yet very easy ways for a castle to be defended. There were many castles that utilised them, and in particular in Wales, King Edward I, who created a number of large stone keep castles known as the Ring of Stone to impose his English rule over the Welsh, did utilise them. He imagined his guards trapping Welsh rebels inside that killing zone in gatehouses, and then his guards using the murder holes to attack, and this is exactly what happened. Welsh attackers burst into the castles, sometimes being lured in by the English guards, and after rushing in, they were then trapped. Murder holes, not for the faint-hearted, but one of the simplest, easiest and cheapest ways of defending a medieval castle. They really didn't mess around during that time in naming things, did they? But yeah,